So, I notice that my subscribe pillow is missing. I probably didn't bring it in for my truck after the last YouTuber meetup. And it's cold outside, so I'm not going to go all the way out there and then get it and come back. By the end of this ramble, I think I'm going to get to the point, which is how I got fat. But to get there, we're first going to explore the inspiration for me talking about it. So, I just watched yesterday the video by Repsion. It's the second video of its kind about Joy Sparkle's BS, where he does bring up a lot of dirt on her, right? Just like he did in the first one that I saw like 2 weeks ago, but it had come out like a long time ago. So the reason why I'd seen either of them was because I actually had a positive experience with Joy Sparkle's BS a couple weeks ago, where she wanted to do an interview of me where she wanted to talk about BetterHelp and some guy named Peter Mon who had a whole bunch of old tweets that she wanted to talk about with me. We shot at least 2 videos worth of videos, for her channel, and a couple of outtakes probably that were good for other videos for her, maybe. But all of that footage never saw the light of day. Just didn't come out. And I don't know why, but there's the possibility, I don't know, but there's a possibility that maybe behind the scenes somebody told Joy Sparkle's BS who I was in some sort of negative light, which is strange to me after watching the Repsion videos and seeing like the comment section of her videos and stuff. Like, it's possible that Joy Sparkle's BS thought that I was bad for her image. And, what does that make me in light of Repsion's videos and the drama that's going on there? I don't know. But one of the points that Repsion brings up in his videos is that Joy Sparkle's BS has said that she got fat from copper IUD, which gave her copper poisoning, right? And basically she went online with her symptoms and found other people had the same sort of symptoms, and they were in forums about IUDs. And I also recently had watched this documentary called The Bleeding Edge. I think it was on Netflix when I watched it, but it could have been on HBO. I don't know, but I can't find it anymore. But it's out there. Probably Netflix. Anyways, the Bleeding Edge documentary had a different kind of IUD in it that was the majority of the plotline of that documentary. And it was making women sick and giving them similar symptoms to what Joy Sparkle's BS was experiencing. And it wasn't exactly copper poisoning that was happening with the IUD that was featured in The Bleeding Edge. But I think that people, after seeing that sort of thing happen with the other IUD, they were ready for investigating other symptoms that might come from other IUDs and stuff. I mean, there's also a thing where there's like a hip replacement that, because there's 2 pieces of metal that grind against each other, it was creating a sort of heavy metal poisoning in people. And so the movie basically warns that you should get the ceramic one instead of the titanium one. That's awesome. But it does kind of stand out that there's a lot of evidence behind the other types of IUDs that Joy Sparkles did not get, causing all of these symptoms. And there's not a lot of evidence to suggest that the stuff that she has is connected to the particular kind of IUD that she was using. And, you know, I'm not a doctor, and neither is Repsion. We're just, you know, smart people on the internet. We're all like, and so is Joy Sparkles, right? We just come from different perspectives, different schools of thought, if you were, and I actually think that, you know, seeing how fast Joy Sparkles BS put on weight, I'd like to see a full panel done on her, like all the blood work, and see every little bit of test. And Repsion said in his video that the codes that she showed in a piece of paper to the screen were just codes that were from self-reporting, not necessarily from actual blood tests. And so that that immediately made me remember that I had some actual numbers in an envelope downstairs for my own blood tests. You know, because I have problems myself, medical problems that are documented. So, yeah, I'm not passing judgment on either Repsion or Joy Sparkles, except for the fact that Joy Sparkles has sat on some footage of, you know, interviewing me for whatever reason. But I really don't need the drama, to be honest. That was just my jumping off point, having watched that on the internet, into, like, the inspiration of telling you all how I got fat. So for a lot of my life, I was actually a skinny person who could almost strangle my own waist with my hands. Like, seriously, like almost Eugenia Cooney skinny. Not that quite, but really skinny. And my brother, who lives in Colorado Springs, he's skinny too. In fact, I sometimes joke and call him Skinny Me, because we look similar, except for I look exploded right next to him. I'd say it all started for me when I joined the Army and had to try to gain some weight in order to be more physically fit for the physical fitness test. And this was all the way back in 1997, when I was like, I was slamming cheeseburgers like every lunch. I'd have like twice as much food as anyone else. And I went from about 132 pounds at 6'2" to about 180 pounds in a year. And I did a lot of push-ups. I did enough push-ups to hold the earth down, and I was pretty lean. And then I stayed that way till around 1999. And then I had some things happen in my life that have changed the course of my life forever. It happened when I went to the Republic of South Korea, and we really don't know what it was that I came in contact with, but there are a few theories behind it. But whatever it was, I came into contact with it while I was in South Korea. My body rejected it, and then my body's immune system recognized my thyroid as being foreign. And this particular medical problem is known as Hashimoto's thyroiditis. And my thyroid was eaten right out of my body. no radiation needed. It was just gone. They didn't have to kill off what was left in order to help regulate me better. They looked there and they're like, wow, it's just fucking gone. And so I started gaining weight. And this was before I knew what was wrong with me. Not the good kind of weight. So by 2010, by 2001, I was 220 pounds and just barely underneath the Army's limits for how much weight you can actually have before you start being put on the Fat Boy program and getting twice as much PT as everyone else. And half the time I was having trouble passing the run test and the physical fitness test. There was the push-up test, there was a sit-up test, and then there was the run. And I was maxing the push-ups and sit-ups, but the second half of running 2 miles was gassing me. Totally. Like, I was running like a 7.5 minute first mile, and then my second mile, by the end of it, I was just coming under 15:30, I believe, was the cutoff to even pass the test. And there were a couple of tests, you know, some of them practice, some of them for real, that I failed. You know, I had no idea what was going on with me. My sergeant sent me to get psychological testing to see what was wrong with me, and as a screen, those psychiatrists sent me to internal medicine in order to screen out any other problems that it could be, and those internal medicine doctors were the ones that found it. And yeah, by the time I left the Army in 2003, I was already probably over the weight limit for my height. Probably around 240, you know. And I was, by that time, already getting help with my thyroid medication. They were already starting to climb me up in my dosage. I think back then I was at like a 0.025 to start, and then like every couple months they would bring it up just a little bit and a little bit. But it was too little too late. I had already started packing on the weight. And yeah, after about 10 years of being hypothyroid, it's on the same axis in your body as other hormones. So taking hormone replacement therapy for one of these hormones that are on the same axis will affect the other hormones. And after about 10 years, I was also low T. And that's part of my YouTube journey here that you guys have been with me on, because I made videos of the first 10 times that I put a needle into my skin to give myself a testosterone shot. And I didn't immediately get treatment for being low T as soon as I found out, because the first that I got wind of it was a doctor telling me it before I had insurance. And I was like, this is going to cost me what? Can't afford that. And I was working as an electrician in the union, and on construction calls I would be there for like 2 months and then get laid off. And you had to work for like 3 months in order for your insurance to kick in. So I would go years in that part of my life without insurance, and it was, you know, something that I probably, you know, in hindsight, if I had done more research, I would have been able to get treatment for it then. But what happened to me was around 2012, when I was nearing 300 pounds, I looked for other ways to get testosterone from doctors, and I had put myself on the waiting list to get health care from the VA because I was a veteran, and I was a disabled. I'm a disabled veteran because of this thyroid condition that I caught while I was in South Korea. But it takes time if you don't get into the VA system right when you leave the service. If you think that you can do it, on private insurance and stay away from the VA, because the VA is kind of stigmatized, and for a while I felt like maybe I'll stay away from them, right? Well, when you try to get back into that system, it takes a long time. There's a wait list. And while I was on that wait list in 2012, I decided to get a sports medicine doctor who primarily did physicals for football players. Like, that was his bread and butter. The sports medicine doctor gave me a checkup and then prescribed to me to go to a independent lab where my entire panel cost like $30. I believe the place was called Any Lab Tests in Colorado Springs. And Any Lab Tests, they gave the doctor the proof that he needed to prescribe the testosterone to me. And this was before I got into the VA system. And then after I got into the VA system, they made me go off of the testosterone to get a baseline because they didn't trust the sports medicine doctor. And then they saw, wow, you do need it. And then they put me back on. And then when I moved to Denver a couple years ago, they once again didn't trust the previous doctors, took me off of it, and then put me back on after they saw my baseline. So there's a lot of medical documentation of me having these problems. So recently, in 2016, I decided to start monitoring my caloric intake with an app on my phone because I was like, well, let's get to the bottom of this problem of me still being overweight even after being medicated. And it's a lot harder to lose the weight than it is to gain it. I know this for a fact. And exercise wasn't really helping. I started trying to do diet, and what I realized was half of the calories that I was taking in the day came from Mountain Dew, from soda. And so I decided, after I'd used that app for a couple months, that basically the one thing that was holding me back in being able to lose weight was to just eliminate soda from my life. And I did it. I stopped drinking Mountain Dew. I have not had a Mountain Dew since January of 2016. I'm coming up on my 3-year anniversary of that. And after that, I started losing weight. And somewhere along the way, I do attribute some of my weight gain to sedentary lifestyle, primarily from gaming, from playing online MMO games. So just throw that in there that I spent a good 5 years doing that stuff and decided it wasn't healthy for me because I just needed to not plan my life around things online. But recently I had a little stint where after getting down to a plateau of weight loss where I was having a hard time breaking 280 pounds and going lower than that, I had a little stint of kind of a relapse into weight gain where I couldn't figure out what it was that was doing it. And finally, I go to the doctor about 7 months ago, and every time I go to the doctor now, I have to get a blood test. This is like twice a year. they do my blood test, and my TSH, which is thyroid stimulating hormone, was more than 10 times what a normal person should have. And TSH is it's one of those things where they test the wrong hormone in order to figure out what the hormone that they were trying to test is, because your actual thyroid hormone is very hard to discern in the blood. So they test this other hormone that comes from your brain that stimulates your thyroid to produce more thyroid hormone. So the way that it works is the higher the TSH number, the lower your actual thyroid hormone is in your blood, right? It's kind of counterintuitive when you're just looking at the numbers. You know, you're actually doing worse the more that number is if you are hypothyroid. So a normal person should be between a 2 or 3, I guess, parts per million. I'm not sure, but it's a 2 or 3 is the score. And my numbers were 33. And that was 7 months ago. And we had to figure out what it was that was causing my thyroid medication to not work anymore. And what we narrowed it down to was I was taking B vitamins. I found that they helped me stay awake and have energy throughout my workday. And I was B vitamin deficient on a previous blood test before that blood test 7 months ago. And so I just started taking some B vitamins, and what we found out was I have to separate them in the day from my thyroid medicine because they basically cancel each other out in my stomach. So if I take them both at the same time, it's like I'm not even taking my thyroid medication. So that was interesting. It was a very horrible part of my life as my brain started getting sluggish and my productivity at work was kind of hurting and whatnot. So they allowed me to try it my way, which was to just separate the B vitamins from my medication or not take B vitamins at all. I just kind of take one maybe in the middle of the day if I feel like I feel that same feeling of being deficient in it. There is a feeling that is discernible to me. So, but it worked to the point where I am now just 22 on that scale. 22.7 is my new score, and that's after 7 months. You know, when I told you at the beginning of the story that they started me out at like 0.025 for the prescription of this, I'm now at 0.250, which is like 10 times bigger than that. And let's see. Before they changed my prescription just this week, the prescription was 2 of these 0.125s, which made a 0.250. And now it's a 0.137 right there. Right? And yeah. I really didn't want to have my prescription changed, but it's just part of dealing with this fat disease, this thyroid problem, that as you're losing weight, you actually have to have your prescription recalibrated for the weight that your body is. So the fact that I have such a high level of thyroid hormone prescribed to me, this level of thyroxine, it's because I have a big body. And as I lose weight, then they do another blood test. They find that it's out of whack again, and then I have to get it changed again. You know, and this is just something that, you know, it's not something I like to do. I don't even like taking any pills at all. You know, like that big ibuprofen bottle from Walmart. If I were the only person in the house, in the family, I could buy one of those big ibuprofen bottles from Walmart, and it would last me my whole freaking life. Like, I hate taking pills. Right? I will break down and take one for a headache only in extreme circumstances, like maybe twice a year. So, yeah. And for this, all of this stuff that I go through, I got a 10% disability from the VA, which, as my life has progressed and I've had all of these issues related to my weight, health issues, I feel kind of gypped, but then I remember that there are guys with no legs because they stepped on a landmine, and I'm like, you know, I'd rather take a pill than not be able to walk. And the other prescription I have for my low T condition, I switched from the injections because they cause abscesses, they cause infection. I don't like the injections, and they switched me to Androgel, which it's prescription, but it's basically you pump the gel and rub it on you. And try not to get it on your girlfriend when it's still wet, because you don't want to be dating the bearded lady, or maybe you do, to each their own. But I have found that regardless of what I'm putting in my mouth and regardless of my activity level, the overarching reason for my weight gain and weight loss is, where are my hormones, right? And in Repsion's video to Joy Sparkle's BS, he did emphasize that she was sitting on her couch being sedentary, and I can imagine some people thinking that because I set up in this chair in this studio with all my paintings whenever I'm making these videos, that whenever you see me, you're in this. I'm in this chair, right? So I must be the sedentary person who never leaves this chair, which is not true at all. And if you look at the body of work on my YouTube channel, a lot of times I'm getting out of the house. Just today, Misty and I were exploring a homeless encampment that was torn away, and the county decided to tear down all the trees that were around that homeless encampment. We were kind of pissed off about that. We were just looking for a place to walk our dogs, really, but we saw that the homeless encampment just moved down the stream a little bit. So, I bet they're probably going to have to go clean up that area next, and they'll just keep on moving that homeless encampment, NIMBY style. But yeah, you guys know that I explore so much, and I'm out of the house a lot, and what you don't know is how much I walk at work. I get the steps in. Okay? I do a lot of walking at work. I don't just sit down like a desk job. A lot of my job is walking around doing stuff. So, half my job is at my desk, because, you sit and talk to someone that you're counseling, but there's a lot of walking in between. And, yeah, when people make the judgment that you're at fault for your weight, and that there's no other answer, that it, like Thunderfoot puts in his videos, that it is simple output versus input. I have to tell you that there are extenuating circumstances, and whilst I don't know that Joy Sparkles BS is suffering from the particular illness that she's suffering from, I do think there is something obviously going on, because nobody gains that much weight that quickly without something going on. And it could even be from her IUD. You know, could be. Maybe not by the mechanism that she believes, but perhaps something else went wrong, you know. And it could be a multiple cause situation. But I know that for me, simply monitoring input versus output, I was able to get down to a weight loss plateau where I had lost like 35 pounds, maybe, and I wasn't getting any better until I addressed some other issues, like getting another blood test and, you know, making sure my hormone levels were right. And yeah, there are things that are insurmountable without medical help, right? Unless you want to actually do the extreme of just running 8 hours a day, maybe. You'd have to go beyond the point where it was healthy for you, as far as exercise goes. And I do know one of my friends recently died because he tried to do too much exercise in too little time. You know, he was trying to do the P90X, and he was overdoing it, and he died in his sleep. Longtime viewers of my channel will recognize that as Inventor Gorilla's story. He got bad news from the doctor about his cholesterol, and it spooked him, and he tried to lose weight really quickly, and it killed him. And I don't want to go out that way. I want to try to do it in moderation in all the different things that I'm doing. So I will, though, show you guys that this is my, forgive the coffee stains, that was from Misty, but you can see that the TSH right there, that's at 22.7. That was my most recent test, and hopefully I'll get it down to, you know, between 2 and 3 in a couple months, and I'll be back on my way to being able to lose weight as I please normally, and not be held back by the fact that my body just does not want to give it up. You know? So yeah, that's how I got fat. Bunch of different factors. Drinking Mountain Dew for 15 years, bad thyroid condition, online gaming. That's about what happened. But how I'm going to get thin again, that's not as simple. So hopefully I'm not so fat that you guys think that I am meant for a podcast rather than YouTube. Take care.